Hey guys, it's Tia. Today I wanted to make a quick, free, no BS guide to selling on Etsy for complete beginners, taking you from 0 sales and hopefully get you that first sale, first 10 sales, 100, 1,000, and then even beyond that. Now, the first few sales on a new shop are always the hardest because you don't have any reviews, you have no traffic or social proof, and the algorithm of these e-commerce marketplaces rank sellers with previous sales higher. So you're competing with all these old sellers, which is quite intimidating as a beginner. But I'll tell you a piece of good news. I've made thousands of sales using different e-commerce platforms, and in my opinion, Etsy by far is the easiest to start selling on from scratch. I made my first few Etsy sales easier, in my opinion, than on any other platform that I've sold on before. No paid advertising or social media promotion, just a little bit of research, planning ahead, so executing that plan, and then understanding search engine optimization, which are all things that I'm going to be going through in this video. Now, what work I have done on Etsy and will do in the future is going to be making me money in my sleep for as long as I'm on Etsy. So it's a good idea. If you open an Etsy shop using my link below, you can get 40 free listings today. If you find this video helpful, make sure you like, subscribe, tap the notifications bell, just to remind it really helps the channel out. Now let's start by zooming out and taking a step back. Why sell on Etsy? So Etsy as a company is big enough, but not too big, which is just perfect for sellers. It's a public company with millions in customers and investments, but it's really still in that growth phase where it hasn't gotten as big as sites like Amazon, where there's lots of competition and a much higher barrier of entry. In fact, the rate of increase of customers, as you can see from this graph, is much faster than that of sellers. So in terms of difficulty, especially for beginners, if we're sort of comparing to Amazon, eBay, or starting your own website, I would rank Etsy sort of lowest on the difficulty list. Now, I could really sum this whole process up in just 2 steps. Number 1, find a thing that sells, and then number 2, sell that thing and repeat, right? But obviously there's some sort of Etsy specific things that would be really helpful to know if you're starting from 0 and you want to build a long-term business. So that's what this video is about. Now, when it comes to official seller guidance, I found the Etsy handbook to be sort of useful in terms of understanding the basics, but also quite waffly because they're trying to create this really sort of wholesome, non-corporate vibe, if you get what I mean, which is quite good for encouraging creativity, but it's a pain when it comes to learning what you actually need to know to be a successful seller. So I've condensed it into these 6 simple steps: rules, research, create, listings, traffic, and convert. Okay, I've actually made more detailed videos on each of these things, so you can check those out on my channel if you're interested. But this video is just an overview, and these are really the only things you need to do to be successful on Etsy or really any other platform. So firstly, rules. You want to understand the seller house rules and terms of service so you don't end up sort of making a bit of money, getting excited, and then getting banned. I'll just summarize the basics. So first of all, you can't sell anything you want on Etsy, unfortunately. So make sure you're aware of that. I was confused when I first went on Etsy as to what counts as vintage or handmade, but I think unique is really the key word. So for example, you can't just sell a used MacBook or straight up resell or drop ship some kind of dog toy from China, but you can sell MacBook stickers. You can sell a customized decorated dog toy and things like that, which we'll get onto. Other rules you should be aware of are about policy, so shipping and delivery, intellectual property, when you need to disclose that you're using a production partner, not selling things with hate speech in them, filling out all your shop information, such as your contact details, your profile picture, banner, shop policies, and the rest of that. So once you understand the rules, you know the basics, and you set your shop up correctly, next we need to research to find something that we can sell, which is ideally a cross between what's in demand, obviously what's allowed on Etsy, and lower in competition and also easier for us to make. So this will maximize our chance of making money as fast as possible. Now I suggest you sort of take a notepad or like a Word document and write down all your ideas as you do your research. So to start off with, just some things to consider. Etsy customers are around 70% female and shopping for gifts, decorations, crafts related things mostly. Now there's a lot of things you can sell on Etsy, but if your goal is to make passive income and most importantly actually make a profit with ideally the least amount of effort possible, then you should keep those things in mind. Now, for example, you can make handmade products that you have to ship yourself. You can also make print-on-demand products that are shipped for you by a production partner. So it's essentially, branded drop shipping type of situation, basically creating a design and then using services like Printful and Printify to print your design onto things like mugs, t-shirts and stuff, and then fulfill your order. Or you can make digital products that can be downloaded. So those are the three main ways you can sell. So what are you going to sell? Now let me summarize these things in more detail for you quickly. The benefits of handmade products. They're pretty fun to make, they're hard to copy, and they're very easy to customize. But the downsides, you do need to ship them, and they take some time to make. You will get a lot of customer DMs, and it's just not a very passive way to sell. It's sort of the traditional way to sell on Etsy, but, it's basically a full-time job. Now, print on demand, it's pretty easy to set up. I have a whole tutorial on how to do it. I filmed a very long time ago. You can create lots of designs and listings and you don't need to ship. So this is a quite passive way of selling, right? And I used to sell quite a lot of print on demand products. So I've got lots of videos on these. Now, the downside is that you're pretty reliant on your fulfillment company for things like print quality and shipping. And you'll probably get a lot of customer messages being like, where is my product? And it's pretty high competition, to be honest. Now, last but not least, digital products. These are sort of becoming more popular as Etsy recently introduced them. And this is the most passive option because the way this works is you just upload a file to your listing. And then after that, the customer pays and they download it. So what can I say? Passive income in the purest form, really, digital products. But some downsides are, depending what you decide to sell, you may need some technical know-how, Photoshop, Illustrator, those kind of things. A possible learning curve there, because if anyone could make these digital products, then why would they buy from you? So that's just something to consider as well. So these here are sort of the main 3 fulfillment models used on Etsy. Each suits different people. Now, if you've watched my channel, I obviously have a preference. I'm not going to sort of force you or tell you what to sell. If you have a look around the marketplace at examples of each of these things, then you should be able to gauge which one you prefer. Now, once you've chosen what broad category of products you want to sell, you want to do market research to choose a niche to start selling it. For example, if you choose to sell print-on-demand products, you can sell mugs, shirts, sweaters, designs for pet lovers, teachers, so on. If you want to sell digital products, you can sell a lot of things really. So like Canva templates, budget planners, video editing add-ons. What else is there? Fonts, graphics, printable art, so many different things. There's so many options of what to sell and it's really easy to get overwhelmed. So yes, you can sell a mix of different products in your shop and then separate them with categories, but it's really easy to slip into this shiny object syndrome trap, which is where you start selling something, you look around the marketplace, see that other sellers are doing well selling something else, and then you're like, oh, I want to sell that, and then you keep switching around. Now, I'll talk about testing later. It's good to test to an extent, but this kind of stuff is actually harmful as a beginner because you're only starting out and you're not increasing your market share for certain keywords, which means that you don't make money very fast, you get discouraged, and then you quit. So one of the most important ways you get found on Etsy is by people typing keywords into the search bar and then your results showing up. If you make a coffee mug listing today, tomorrow you list a shirt, and then the day after you list a sweater, and then a sock or something, and then you've got one listing for each of those keywords, but it's unlikely you'll get found when people search for those individual keywords because you only have one listing and there's like thousands of listings, right? But instead of jumping around different keywords and you made 5 sweater designs instead, right? Each with the keyword sweater, you're taking up a much larger market share for listings containing the keyword sweater. So rather than a tiny market share for each of those 5 different keywords, if that makes sense. So people actually looking for a sweater are just statistically more likely to come across one of your listings. And this is one of the reasons that shops that sell 1 or 2 types of product tend to do better than variety stores that try to sell everything, because they have a greater market share of their keywords, and eventually they become known in their niche. So what I would recommend is sort of looking around the marketplace, seeing what other people are selling, and then taking note of all the different types of products that you see that you would like to sell, and then looking at how competitive they are. And so that's how many results come up when you search for that keyword, and whether they're actually selling. So you can gauge this by reviews and maybe sales if the seller hasn't privated them. So yeah, as I said, look around, make a list, and choose the product you think has the least competition, the highest demand, and you're actually able to create, because we're all limited by certain things, whether it's technical know-how or like the design software that we have, or so decide on that, and then make as many listings as you can for that type of product. Now, the main message here is not to copy other sellers, but to gather ideas of things that will realistically sell, read the reviews, and then see what customers like, what they don't like, and then improve on their products in your own unique way. So once you've made around 100 listings for a certain keyword, you'll have some data, and you can decide based on your sales and traffic data whether to stick with that keyword or try selling in a new set of keywords. So where are we up to now? You've decided on what broad and sort of niche category you want to sell in first. Now let's talk about how you can set up your listing to actually make sales. Firstly, traffic. If no one sees your listing, no one can buy your listing. So how do you get found on Etsy? Now, the most important way is search engine optimization. Etsy itself is a search engine. So that means you need to put keywords in your titles, tags, and descriptions that people, customers on Etsy are actually searching for. For example, if you want to sell a Christmas sweater, you can use the keyword Xmas jumper, or a different way of saying it is Christmas sweater, in your title and tags. Now, which keyword do you want to put first? Do you want to use both? Do you want to use one or the other? Or even another keyword? Which will help you get found by the most customers? Now, it all depends on what people are typing into the search bar. How do you know what people are typing in? Well, you can use these keyword tools to find that out. I use Sales Samurai. I have a link in the description and various tutorials on my channel. You can get 20% off with my discount code tier20. I also have a full video guide on how to do SEO for Etsy. It takes you through titles, tags, images, descriptions, step by step. But that's the basic idea. By putting keywords that people are actually searching for in your listing, you can get found for free without doing any paid advertising. Now, once you've optimized your keywords, you can then decide to do paid advertising or promote your shop on social media, which will bring you more traffic and then even more potential customers, right? But I would recommend focusing on search engine optimization first, because if someone is actually searching for your listing, then they're more likely to buy it than rather than someone just coming across it on Instagram, for example. So there's buyer intent there, which is really important, and you do not have to use paid ads or social media to make your first few sales. Let's talk a bit more about traffic. So to collect and analyze your data to increase your traffic, one thing you want to do before you make your first listing is connect Google Analytics to your Etsy shop. I have a video on how to do this, and it's important because it shows you which keywords are helping your shop get found in search, and it gives you more data than your dashboard will give you. Now, the higher you rank in search for your keywords, the more customers will see your listing. How do you rank higher? Well, if a listing's made more sales in the past, it will rank higher, but that's sort of out of your control. As a new seller, you don't have any previous sales, so that's why starting off is difficult as well. The things that are in your control are having a discount running and free shipping if you're selling physical products. So these two things tend to improve rankings of listings, and they also help them stand out in search, as well as star seller, but obviously if you're new you won't have that. So make sure you enable these two things, right? Now, just going back to listings for a bit, let's talk a little bit about price. So when people have asked me why they're not making sales, and then they link me their shop, this is one of the most common reasons. So the price is too high for the perceived value of your listing. Now, your offer is what you price your product versus what a customer is willing to pay for it, okay? So everyone has their own idea of value. If your offer is not good enough for the majority of customers, you may get traffic, but no one will buy. So if you're selling what you think is the most amazing shirt in the world, but you price it at $80, me as a customer, I'm not going to buy that because I wouldn't buy any shirt for $80, right? So that's an extreme example, but what I'm trying to say is do your research to see what other sellers are pricing similar products, and then start off by pricing your products at the lower end of that. So you also want to increase the perceived value of your product by obviously making it unique, high quality, and carefully branding it. So having high quality images and descriptions is important for this as well. Now compare your listing to other sellers and think, as a customer, would I buy my own listing or the other sellers? If the answer isn't your own, then think about ways you can improve your listing and your product, right? As a new seller, you ideally want to prioritize sales over profit. And once you get more sales and more reviews, that's when you start ranking higher. You gradually start increasing the price while keeping the sales high. And then that is when things really start multiplying, and then you make bank. And then after that, you can bring some of your Etsy customers to a personal website and then make even more profit there. I'll talk about this later. But you may have to sort of just take the low profits for a while as a beginner. And it's not helping that Etsy's recently increased their transaction fees, but it's just the way it is. Now, that being said, you should never be losing money making sales. If you're in the negative profits, consider whether you can actually afford to sell the type of product that you're selling. So this is actually why I had to decrease the amount of print-on-demand products I was selling in favor of digital products, because fulfillment was getting more expensive on top of having to give refunds, which meant I lost money on some sales. So let's recap. You figured out what to sell, what keywords to use, and you have a reasonably good idea of what to price your products. Now let's start making listings. As I said, I've got a link to 40 free listings in the description when you open a shop using that link. More than enough to get you started. Aim for 200 plus listings. The more you have, the higher chance of being found. Writing your titles, tags, and descriptions well for your very first listing, and then using the copy listing function for the rest of them. Obviously, remembering to edit your details as appropriate is a really quick and nice way of making listings fast and keeping things consistent throughout your shop. Now, something I've heard a few times, you do not need to buy your own listings or get your family and friends to buy them, even as a beginner. I don't think it's a good idea, because you sort of become dependent on these artificial sales instead of really just trying to find out your true conversion rate. So your first few sales will be slow. Expect a 1 to 2% conversion rate. So that's a sale for every 100 visitors. But as you make more sales, they will start increasing faster and faster. So keep an eye on your dashboard and your sales. Take a note of which keywords are getting you more traffic, which products are selling better, and then make more similar listings with those keywords, right? So focus on what's working for you. Once you've made a few sales and you're past the beginner stage, you kind of know how things work and you won't really fall into shiny object syndrome. You can start the whole process over again by doing market research, seeing if you can sell in a different set of keywords, and expanding your customer base and the available products that you can sell. At this point, you can also think about using paid ads to increase your ranking and your traffic in the marketplace, and also creating social media presence to increase your brand awareness. But my advice is to not start using paid ads until you've actually made your first few sales for free, because it helps you validate for free whether your product can actually sell before you just throw money at it, right? So you've made your first few sales, made 10 sales, 100, 1,000, what next? Now at this stage, you want to create a really strong brand presence. So you continue to make sales on Etsy, improve your listings, product quality, customer service, aiming for that star seller, and all the things you've been doing before, but also thinking about preparing for a move out of Etsy and to a private website. Why? Because at the end of the day, Etsy or any other marketplace really should be a tool to help you launch your own e-commerce brand, not something that you rely on, right? So these marketplaces are someone else's property, and at any point the algorithm could change, competitors can come up, God forbid, you might even get suspended, not to mention they do take quite a big chunk off your profit. So obviously keep selling on Etsy, don't shut your Etsy store down, but you want to make your Etsy customers aware of where to find you and really build a long-term brand online by having a home for your shop. I have a video on how to import your Etsy store to Shopify if that's what you like. WooCommerce, WordPress is a good option. There's a lot of these website builders out there if you don't know how to code your own, like Wix, Squarespace. I used to use Shopify, but now I use WooCommerce because I have a hosting plan that sort of lets me make multiple websites, but let's not get into that. Like, the point is, Anything with your own domain is fine. Your Etsy customers can find you through social media and branding. Don't be too explicit though. Don't say things in your descriptions or messages being like, go buy this on my website, because that's fee avoidance and it's against the terms of service. But having your own domain in your thank you messages and inserts, that I think is good enough. Now, the main idea is that you want to learn and use Etsy as a platform to validate and decide which products to sell, and then build a brand around that while making some passive income, and then use it as a springboard to launch your own brand. Right, so hopefully that was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions. That's it for this video, and I'll see you in the next one.